cancer of an arm.
Brady on third down to the end zone. Gronkowski, his second touchdown today.
What a catch by Conner, and James Conner is in. What a play.
Got to the end zone, and he's caught. Touchdown.
Minshew taking a deep shot for Goddard. He's open. He's got it, and he's got a touchdown. 36-yard score, and Minshew all fired up.
It is a big lead, and this is Travis Homer, who got a block, takes it the other way, and this will be 6. Can you believe it?
Welcome in, everyone, to the Lucky Shots podcast. Welcome into Week 14. We are actually getting dangerously close to the end of the season, and it's fun to watch right now. I mean, every team, it seems like, is in it. You got, in the AFC side, everybody's kind of got the same record, or is one game out, or maybe 2 games out. There's a lot of people very close in that division, or in that conference. And then the NFC, it's up for grabs as well. There's quite a few spots that we could see change over the next few weeks. So it's going to be fun to watch. And, you know, there's not really any teams that are completely set in stone. A lot could change in these next 4 weeks. So it's going to be a fun thing to watch. But let's hop into last week, Week 13. Maybe the biggest headline. The Detroit Lions finally won a football game. They get their first win of the season over the Vikings, 29-27 on a last-second touchdown. All I can say is Minnesota, it's exactly what you would expect. I mean, they just play down to their opponents all the time. Whatever the skill level of their opponent is, that's where they play. They let Detroit hang in this one, and then they called a terrible defensive scheme on the very last play of the game, left a guy nearly wide open for a touchdown. So tough for them. They're still kind of in the hunt, but the Lions finally get that first win. I doubt they'll make the playoffs, but, you know, it's good to get your first win of the season. Then you had the Dolphins extend their winning streak to 5. They got a win over the Giants, 20-9. Their team trying to make a late push, and they've got a good shot. Only a game out of any of the wild card spots. So if they continue to, you know, be heating up like they have been, then they have a good chance. The Cardinals remain atop the NFC with their win over the Bears, 33-22. They are now 10-2 and pretty much in the driver's seat for first place. You know, they do have the Packers nipping on their heels. They've got the Buccaneers doing the same. So they don't have, you know, a lot of room for let up. They're going to have to continue to win to get that first place spot. But right now they're in control of their own destiny for that number 1 seed. Then you have Washington moves into a wild card spot with their win over the Raiders. They won 17-16. They are now 6-6. They're actually now the number 6 seed if the playoffs were to start today, you know, and they've got a very NFC East heavy end of the season. So there's a good shot that Washington even, you know, makes it into the playoffs. Led by Taylor Heineke most of the season. They thought it was going to be Fitzpatrick. Immediately had to go to a backup plan, and hey, it's kind of paying off for them right now. So again, interesting team to look out for. Then you had the Steelers upset the Ravens 20-19. That moves them to 6-5-1, and the Ravens fall to 8-4. Ravens still atop of that division, but it's another one that's pretty wide open. You got the Steelers sitting here with 6 wins. The Browns, I believe, are sitting at 500. The Bengals are sitting in a wild card spot. So again, just pretty wide open. And if the Ravens continue to struggle, because they've been struggling quite a bit the past few weeks, it could be bad news for them. The Seahawks finally find their wings against the 49ers. They won 30-23. Fun game to watch there as well. You had a lot happening, and pretty early on in the game, fake punt goes for a touchdown, and that ended up being the difference. And then the Chiefs stay atop the AFC West with a win over Denver, 22-19 or 22-9. The Broncos had a chance, not really in the game, but with this game they had a chance to go into first place of the AFC West. That didn't happen. They now fall to last place. But again, another division, very close. A lot could happen in these last few weeks. So let's hop into Thursday night. We've got Pittsburgh against Minnesota. Pittsburgh just won 20-19 against Baltimore. Minnesota lost 29-27 against Detroit. Both of these teams, they're in the hunt. So they both have a lot to fight for. But if you look at Pittsburgh, they've only beat one team that's over 500 this season. So going in against Minnesota, who I believe is 500, they got a good chance. But when they are playing great competition, what are they going to do? I mean, their one win over a team above 500, besides the Ravens last week, was the Broncos. And the Broncos were 3-2 at the time, and currently sitting at 500. So Pittsburgh, just not looking all that impressive, but they are going against Minnesota, who keeps every game close. So again, Pittsburgh is going to have a shot, and Minnesota's lost 2 straight. So again, both these teams in the hunt. Minnesota always plays to the level of their competition, so it's going to be a close game, which gives Pittsburgh a chance. And, if they go out and get a win here, it's going to make things even more interesting for that AFC North. We're going to go ahead and take Minnesota in that one, though. I think they've got more offensive weapons. Their defense is a little better. In Pittsburgh, just because they won against Baltimore doesn't really mean I believe in them. So we're going to go with Minnesota for that one. And then we hop into Sunday morning. You got New Orleans against the Jets. New Orleans lost 27-17 last Thursday against Dallas. They're currently in the hunt, but they have lost 5 in a row. They're kind of on a skid. They were doing really just fine when Jameis Winston was in. Trevor Siemian has to come in with Jameis going out. That doesn't work out. Bring in Taysom Hill. That didn't work out last week either. They've got to figure out what's going on. They don't have Kamara, haven't had Michael Thomas all year. So how are they going to make things work without those guys? It wasn't like Taysom Hill played bad in this past game. It just wasn't enough to take down the Cowboys. Then you had the Jets lose 33-18 against Philly. Philly only has 1 win with Zach Wilson so far. I believe they may have 3 wins, and only one of those was Zach Wilson. They haven't played all that well with any of the quarterbacks. Going up against New Orleans has a good defense, so regardless of how shaky their offense may be, I think their defense can hold the Jets to, not a whole lot. So we're going to go with New Orleans in that one. Then you got Atlanta versus Carolina. Atlanta lost 30-17 against Tampa. They are in the hunt. Carolina had a bye last week, but their last game was a loss to Miami 33-10. They're also in the hunt. If you look at Atlanta, they've only won 4 of the last 9. You got to kind of go way back to put a stat like that together. It hasn't been pretty, but some games they just come out and they find a way to win. This is a game where they could come out and find a way to win. They have played Carolina before. Carolina won the last meeting 19-13. So it's going to be a tough game. They also didn't have Cam Newton in that game. Carolina didn't. So that adds an extra fold. Maybe this game, Cam helps them win this game more convincingly. Maybe Atlanta finds a way to beat them. But Carolina, sitting in the hunt, they've lost 2 in a row and lost 3 of their last 4. So they're not necessarily on a hot streak either. So it's going to be very interesting to see where these two teams lie. With both of them in the hunt, I feel like whoever wins this game is going to effectively knock the other one out of the playoff picture completely. We're just going to have to wait and see which one it'll be. I think Atlanta gets the win here. but I honestly don't know. It's one that's too close to call, and either side doesn't really have a lot going for them. So we're going to go with Atlanta. I think they get their revenge game over Carolina, but we'll have to see. Then you have Seattle against Houston. Seattle won last week 30-23 against San Francisco. That snaps their 3-game losing streak. Houston lost 31-0 against the Colts, and they've only won once since week 1. Last week, they only had 141 yards of offense. I mean, you're not going to win a football game if you have less than 150 yards of offense. It's just not going to happen. Seattle, they've won 2 of their last 5 now. Snapped that 3-game losing streak. Kind of finally look like they're back on track. And going up against a team like Houston, unless Houston can pull off a stupid upset like they did a few weeks ago, then Seattle's got this one. But either one of these teams, not really in the playoff picture, so not really playing for a whole lot besides pride. Then you got the Raiders against the Chiefs. The Raiders lost last week 17-15 against Washington. This guy called that happening. But the Raiders, they're in the hunt. They've won once in their last 5, however, and that was a 36-33 win over Baltimore, who is also really struggling. So Vegas just hasn't really gotten it figured out. They've had a lot going on this season. They had John Gruden, they had Henry Ruggs, both of those situations, dealing with injuries, stuff like that. Just a lot going on this season. So for them to still be in the hunt is pretty impressive, but they're going up against Kansas City, who's won 5 in a row. They just beat Denver 22-9, and they are first place in the division. So it's not looking good for Vegas. Kansas City also beat them 2 weeks ago, 41-14. So it's just it's not spelling anything great for the Raiders, and we're going to take the Chiefs in this one. Then you have Baltimore against Cleveland. Baltimore, we talked about them a little bit earlier. They lost 20-19 against Pittsburgh. They are first in the AFC North, and they've won 3 of their last 5. But man, has it been shaky. None of it has looked ultra impressive. A lot of low-scoring games. One of those games was against Cleveland, where they won 16-10. That was a couple weeks ago as well. So they're not looking all that great. Cleveland is also not looking great. They're coming off of bye. Their last game was the Baltimore game where they lost 16-10. They're currently in the hunt, but they've lost 3 of their last 5, and they've scored 10 points or less in 3 of their last 5 games. They just can't get it all figured out. They're going to have the full tandem of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt this week, which they didn't have against Baltimore the first time. Can that open up their offense? Can that give them enough steam to maybe get by an also struggling Baltimore team? Or can Baltimore figure it out? Get everything lined up, start playing like the offense that they can be. We've seen them put up a lot of points, so there's a chance they could. I have down that I'm going to take Baltimore, but I might even lean Cleveland. They have both their running backs. They may be able to just pound the rock on Baltimore. So we're going to go Baltimore, but that could change. Man, the fact that Baltimore is struggling so much and Cleveland has those 2 really good running backs, it really could open up their offense. They may not still throw the ball well, but we're going Baltimore. I might change it. Who knows? Then we got Dallas against Washington, another divisional game. Dallas won 27-17 against New Orleans. They're currently sitting in first in the division of the NFC East. Washington won 17-15 against Vegas. They're currently sitting at the number 6 seed, that wild card spot. Dallas has won 3 of their last 5. Washington has won 4 in a row. And one of those wins was against the number 3 seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a very impressive victory. Dallas, they've kind of been struggling. They've been on a downslide. This win against New Orleans was, kind of finally getting them moving in the right direction. And these two teams, they're going to play this week, skip a week, play the next week. So these two teams are going to see each other a lot within the next few weeks. And right now, I feel like Washington is on a hotter streak. 4 in a row, one of those against a legitimate team, and Dallas kind of struggling, not figuring out what they're doing. I bet on Washington last week against the Raiders. I'm going to bet on them again this week. Everything's just kind of lining up for them. Their offense is just controlling the ball. They're not necessarily doing anything crazy. They're not going out and putting up a bunch of points, a bunch of yards, anything flashy. They're going out, they're controlling the ball, running it, taking pressure off Taylor Heineke, and he's making plays when need be. Dallas, their offense kind of just sputters all the time. They go out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Oh, we scored a touchdown this time, 3 and out. They can't sustain drives lately. So we're going to go with Washington, and I think it's going to be low scoring. I think Washington is going to control the ball, and we'll see what Dallas can do with maybe 2 possessions per half. Then we cap off the morning with Jacksonville and Tennessee. The Jackson Volunteers from Tennessee. No. The Jacksonville Jaguars lost 37-7 against the Rams. They've now lost 4 in a row since their Buffalo upset. We didn't expect much from them. We didn't expect them to win that Buffalo game. So not really surprising there. And then you have Tennessee coming off of a bye. They lost in their last game 36-13 against the Red Hot Patriots. They're first in the AFC North, but they've lost 2 in a row. They've got a lot of injuries going on, a lot of things that just aren't looking good for them. But I think they're going to catch a break this week just being against Jacksonville. They may have Julio back, I saw. So maybe, just going against a bad team, they can kind of figure out what they're doing on offense enough to get past a Jacksonville offense that doesn't move the ball all that well. Their defense doesn't stop anybody. So I think Tennessee can wrap that one up, pad their lead in their division. Moving on to Sunday afternoon, we got the Giants and the Chargers. Giants lost last week 20-9 against Miami. They are 2-2 in their last 4. And against the AFC West, which is the Chargers division, they're 1-2. Only win coming against the Raiders. So they lost to Kansas City. They lost to the Broncos. Now they go up against the Chargers. Chargers are just as high-powered as, say, the Chiefs. So it's not looking good for Giants this week. Chargers, they won 41-22 against Cincinnati. They are currently sitting in the 6th seed, and they've won 3 of their last 5. 41 points in 2 of those victories, each game. So, their offense is very potent when it wants to be, but it also can dud out when, out of nowhere. So, going up against the Giants, it seems like, this is going to be a fine game. They're going to go out, they're going to score points, they're going to do fine. But the Giants just do weird shit. And they went out against Philly a couple weeks ago. Philly put up a bunch of points in the 2 games prior. They hold them to 10 and beat them. So we're going with the Chargers. I believe in the Chargers, but the Giants could do something weird and make this just not a good game for the Chargers and possibly kind of ruin their chances of making that playoff push. Then you got Detroit against Denver. Detroit got their first win last week, 29-27 against Minnesota. And they've been real close all season, to be honest. They're sitting with an overtime loss to Pittsburgh. No, an overtime tie to Pittsburgh. A 3-point loss to Cleveland. and then a 2-point loss to Chicago just in the past few weeks. They also had that heartbreaker against Baltimore where they should have won. So they're on the verge. And they finally won a game. So they maybe have things kind of figured out. Maybe they're going in the right direction. Maybe they string together a couple wins here at the end of the season. I hope not this week, going up against my Broncos. The Broncos lost 22-9 against Kansas City. They're currently still in the hunt. That game would have put them in first place. They would have been a division leader, sitting at the 4 seed probably. So kind of tough loss there. But they've won 3 of their last 5. Dallas, the Chargers, and Washington. Washington was Washington was a good win. Washington's on a hot streak. Dallas, they're a division leader. That's a good sign. The Chargers, they're now higher ranked than the Broncos are at the time. So I don't know. It's a completely wide open division. Going up against the Lions, I don't think the Lions really hold that momentum going in against the Broncos, so we're going to take the Broncos, but who knows? The Broncos in similar games have, gone out and taken care of business. Will they do that again this week? We'll have to see, but I think they will. Then we have San Francisco against Cincinnati. The Niners lost 30-23 against Seattle. They're currently sitting in that last wild card spot, and that loss snaps a 3-game win streak for them. They didn't have Debo last week, but they still had 365 yards of offense. George Kittle went out and had an absolutely monster game. I think it was 9 catches, almost 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, but that was really it. That was really the bulk of their offense. They didn't have anybody else doing anything. Eli Mitchell got in the end zone. But other than that, it was just all George Kittle. And again, you probably heard it in the intro, but that fake punt for a touchdown towards the beginning of the game for Seattle, that was the difference. That touchdown right there was the difference in this game. So, if Seattle doesn't pull out that gadget play, do the Niners win? Who knows? But they didn't. They lost to Seattle, so they're going to have to try to pick up the pieces against Cincinnati, who lost a little more convincingly, 41-22 against the Chargers. They are also sitting in that final wild card spot. They've only won 2 of their last 5, and their 3 losses were to the Jets, the Browns, the Chargers. Chargers, okay, that's fine. That's a fine loss. But the Browns, the Jets are terrible. The Browns haven't been doing all that great the past 5 games either. So that's a tough loss. And they also got blown out in that one. 2 of those losses, 2 of their 3 losses in the last 5 have been high scoring for the other team, and they can't keep up. So going into a game against San Francisco where they'll hopefully have Debo back. He's dealing with that groin issue. Could be out another week, but they're really going to need him this week. But a team that's got Debo, a team that has George Kittle, Elijah Mitchell is doing really well. Just had a 3-game win streak, so they've won 3 of their last 4. And you're sitting here with 3 losses in your last 5 against the Jets, Browns, Chargers. I'm going to go with Cincinnati because I still don't know if Debo's going to be back. And if Debo isn't back, can George Kittle by himself beat the Cincinnati Bengals? I don't think so. So we're going to go with Cincinnati, but that's dependent on whether or not Debo plays. Then we've got probably a really big game of the week, Buffalo against Tampa Bay. Buffalo just lost 14-10 against New England. They're sitting in the wild card 5 spot, so right outside of the division leaders. That game would have given them the lead in the division, but it was a weird game. Monday night, super cold, kind of whipping around snow, the wind going crazy. Honestly, I have a personal beef with the Bills now. Why they didn't throw the ball to Stephon Diggs when they threw the ball almost 20 times in their last drive, and they didn't throw it 20 times, maybe like 12, 13 times. But He only got 2 targets. The best player on your offense besides Josh Allen gets 2 targets when you're trying to drive down the field and win the game. Stupidity. They deserve to lose that game. That's all I got to say. Tampa Bay, they won 30-17 going up against Atlanta. Tampa Bay is first in the NFC South. They have now won 3 in a row, and they've gone 7-2 in their last 9. New Orleans and Washington, both of their losses. New Orleans, not necessarily a good loss, but Tampa Bay just has a hard time with New Orleans anytime they play them, regardless of who's playing quarterback, regardless of how either team is doing. So they just normally have trouble with them. And then Washington, one of the hottest teams in the league right now, sitting with their little win streak. But I think we got to go with Tampa Bay here. It's got a great possibility of being a shootout. It's in Tampa Bay, so the weather should cooperate as well. I really hope that it's going to be this big shootout. That'd be fun to watch. But, Buffalo, figure it out on offense. It's not hard. You have all of these pieces. You have one of the top quarterbacks in the league and probably a top 5 receiver. Utilize that. That's it. Tampa Bay just has a ton more weapons, though, so we're going to go with Tampa Bay over Buffalo in that game. And that takes us in to Sunday night. You got Chicago against Green Bay. Chicago lost 33-22 against Arizona, and they've only won once in their last 7 games. And guess who that was against? The team who just got their first win, the Lions. So not impressive over these last 7 games in the slightest. They're also another offense where it's like you just throw your hands in the air. What are we supposed to do? Quarterback, Justin Fields hasn't played all that great. He's hurt. Andy Dalton comes in. Throws a lot of yards, not a lot of touchdowns, a few interceptions. David Montgomery, pretty inconsistent on whether or not he's going to play well in any of the games. So Chicago's just not looking hot. And then they're going up against Green Bay. Green Bay's coming off their bye, and their last game was a win over the Rams, 36-28. Probably one of their best games of the season offensively. They're first in the NFC North, and they've won 3 of their last 5. They did drop a game to the Vikings and a game to the Chiefs. Chiefs kind of on their own hot streak, so that's an okay loss. The Vikings, if you lose to the Vikings, that's okay, I guess, because they aren't good. They're not great. They're however good you are, but maybe a little less. So that's an okay loss as well. But in the last game that these two teams played, they played earlier this season, Green Bay won 24-14. I expect to see more of the same of that this week. They're not going to have to go out and score a lot of points, Green Bay isn't, to stay ahead of Chicago. So I think it's going to be fairly low scoring, another 24-14 kind of score. I think Green Bay takes this one. And then Monday night, a game that's actually going to be worth a primetime spot. You got the Rams and the Cardinals. The Rams coming off their win 37-7 against Jacksonville. They're currently sitting just outside of the division leaders in that number 5 wild card spot. But they've only won 2 of their last 5. In this last win, it breaks their losing streak. So Jacksonville, you're just that. You're that team. We're on a skid. We need a pick-me-up. We're going to play the Jaguars. But the Rams, they've kind of just looked very shaky over the past few weeks. The offense isn't clicking. Things aren't working how they did at the beginning of the season. They, I think, just need to kind of like the Bills. They need to go back to what made them good. Matt Stafford throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp. That's the main recipe. You got Darrell Henderson, who is a good complement in the running game. You got Odell, who I guess he's fine. He's whatever. He's there, but that's all the good I can say about him. So they've got all these pieces. Go out there and utilize them. It's going to be tough going up against Arizona. Arizona is really, really good this year. They won 32-22 last week against Chicago. They are first place in the NFC West. They've won 2 in a row and 3 of their last 5. Keep in mind, this was Kyler Murray's first game back in that stretch. So, big game for him to just come back, and the weather was not cooperating with anything. It was cold, snowy, rainy, and Kyler went out there and got it done. I believe his first play of the game goes to throw the ball, and it just slipped right out of his hands. That was the kind of game it was, and Arizona still able to go out and put up 33 points. And these two teams have played this year, and Arizona won the last game 37-20. That's kind of where the Rams started to drop off. So hopefully for the Rams, this will be a week they can, go out, get that win over Arizona, and kind of turn things around for their season, because they are sitting in that wild card spot, but they are dangerously close of losing a couple more games, and then all of a sudden we're sitting in week 16 of 18, and you've got to win out. So this is a big game for the Rams, big game for Arizona to keep pace, to stay in first place for the NFC, but even bigger game for the Rams to continue to be in this playoff hunt. We're going to go with Arizona, though. Just everything about them this year has looked really good. Their defense plays very well. Kyler and this offense know how to move the football. So Arizona in that one. And then before we wrap up the show today, we're going to start taking a look at the AFC, NFC playoff picture. We're going to start doing this until we get all the way up until the playoffs to keep track of where a team's at, what's it look like, and who's going to be in, who's going to be out. So if we look at the AFC, you got New England sitting in that number 1 spot. Thanks to their winning streak, they have now overtaken the AFC, and they're looking real good, playing great football, and they're sitting at 9-4 in first place. Their games to finish out the season: the Colts, the Bills, the Jags, and the Dolphins. It's a pretty tough schedule to close out the year. The Colts, they're a stiff competition. The Bills, when they play well, they play well. They're going to be a tough team to beat. They definitely have the Jaguars in the bag. They're going to win that game. And then the Dolphins, who are on their own hot streak. It'll be pretty fun to watch. If the Dolphins continue to win, the Patriots continue to win, and that's how we end the season, that'll be a really good game to watch. Then at the second spot, you got the Tennessee Titans sitting at 8-4. They're going to finish out their season with the Jaguars, the Steelers, the Niners, the Dolphins, and the Texans. So, if you look at 3 out of those 5 games, they're all very winnable games. If you look at the Niners and the Dolphins, those are going to be tough games. And, I think they can live with, if they went 3-2 in the next 4 and finish at 11-6, they're still going to be fine and probably win their division. Then you got Baltimore sitting at number 3. They are also 8-4, and they have a hell of a schedule to finish out the year. The Browns, the Packers, the Bengals, the Rams, and the Steelers. Browns, that's not a guaranteed win. Packers, if Baltimore continues to play as shitty as they have, Packers will mop the floor with them. Then they got the Bengals. The Bengals already blew them out once this season, so unless they get it figured out, that could be a tough game. The Rams are sitting in a wild card spot on the other side in the NFC. They have a really good team, and if Baltimore continues to struggle, again, Baltimore's going to have to figure it out, because if they don't figure it out and they're struggling going into these games, they're not going to win them. And they could very well just fall out of the playoffs completely, so they're in that danger right now. So they're going to need to be coached up well and get things together, or they could completely miss the playoffs. Then we got the Kansas City Chiefs sitting at 8-4. They've got a very heavy division end of season schedule. They got the Raiders, the Chargers, then they got the Steelers and Bengals, and then they close out with the Broncos. I think we can finally safely say the Chiefs, they're back, they're fine, they're going to more than likely win this division because now they're playing well. They've won 5 in a row. They're getting hot at the right time, and they've got an actually scary shot of winning 10 in a row going into the playoffs. They win these next 5, that's going to be 10 in a row going into the playoffs. They're going to have all of the momentum on their side, and they could be very tough to beat. Then you got Buffalo sitting at number 5 in that first wild card spot, sitting at a record of 7-5. They've got a stiff schedule to end the year too. Buffalo, or the Buccaneers, the Panthers, the Patriots, the Falcons, and the Jets. Buccaneers, that's going to be a very tough game. That game is going to set the tone for the end of the Buccaneers or the Bills season. And if they drop to the Bucs in historic fashion, the Panthers game the next week could be very difficult as well. And then again, they'll have the Patriots, so it's going to be another game where they're really not going to get any break in weather. I bet you it's the same kind of weather they had this past week in New England. So New England could just go out, have the same game plan, and if Buffalo doesn't change theirs, they could drop to the Patriots again. And then the Falcons and the Jets should be games that they win, but if they're struggling through the next 3 games and then they limp into Atlanta, bad things could happen. Then you got the Chargers at the 6th spot. They are sitting at 7-5 as well. They have the Giants, Chiefs, Texans, Broncos, Raiders. Giants should be a good win. The Texans should be a good win. But then the Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, again, that's 3 games where if they drop those 3 games, could be no playoffs for them. Then you have Cincinnati rounding out the wild card teams at 7-5. They've got the Niners, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, and Browns. They've also got a very tough schedule. So no cakewalks. No cakewalks to the AFC playoff picture and the playoffs. So there's a few teams in here that these next 5 weeks are going to be very critical every single game. They're going to need to go in and be focused every single game, or there could be a lot of teams out. Some other teams in the hunt, you got the Steelers sitting at 6-5-1, the Colts sitting at 7-6, the Raiders sitting at 6-6, the Broncos sitting at 6-6, and the Browns sitting at 6-6. And a lot of these teams are playing somebody that is above them, already in that playoff picture. So games could swing. Teams that are in the hunt right now could leapfrog over a few other teams. So the AFC, it's very close right now. And I think we see a big change at some point in this whole playoff picture right here. Now let's move on to the NFC playoff picture. This one is just as wide open, to be honest. You got your top 3 teams who are, essentially better than every team in the AFC, and then everybody else who's pretty on par. You got Arizona sitting in the number 1 spot with a 10-2 record. That's absolutely crazy. Honestly, should be 11-1. Again, I keep going back to that Green Bay game. There is no way they should have lost that game. AJ Green, you deserve to be fired. Absolutely terrible. But their remaining schedule, they got the Rams, the Lions, the Colts, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. To be honest, I look at 4 of those games after the Rams this week, and I legitimately see Arizona pretty easily winning every single one of those games. They will beat the Lions. The Colts, that's going to be kind of a stiff game, tough to get through, but I think they've got the firepower, the defensive power to get through that. The Cowboys, I mean, they have played not great against way worse competition. Arizona, the top of the hill right now, going up against the Cowboys. I think they got that one in the bag. And then, I'm not a believer in Seattle just because of their win last week, and I think Arizona handles them as well. So you could be looking at an Arizona team that is 15-2. Think how scary that's going to look if Arizona goes into the playoffs 15-2. Then you got Green Bay sitting at 9-3 in the second seed spot. They have the Bears, Ravens, Browns, Vikings, and Lions left. And if you look at that, you're like, okay, that's a pretty easy schedule. The Bears, they should handle that. The Vikings, they lost to them before, but they should handle that. The Lions, they should handle. The Ravens are reeling, so that should be easy. The Browns should be easy. But all of these games, besides maybe the Bears and the Lions, are honestly toss-ups. The Ravens, if they go out and actually play well, Green Bay could have a tough time. If the Browns figure something out and their run game starts running for 200 yards a game, that could be a fun game to watch. And then the Vikings have already beat the Packers. So if they can't figure out a different way to play them, then it could be, pretty disastrous for the end of the year for Green Bay. Then you got Tampa Bay sitting at the number 3 spot. They are 9-3. They've got the Bills, the Saints, the Panthers, the Jets, and then the Panthers again. Again, I see 4 games that they should easily win. 1 game that's going to be tough, possibly 2, because they apparently just can't beat the Saints. They can't play them well. But again, they're a team that things should pan out very well for them at the end of the season. If I had to go strength of schedule, I'd say they are one of the top 5 easiest rest of season schedules, which bodes well for them. And they're going to need help from above them to hop into possibly the number 1 seed. But sitting here, if they can get one more win than Green Bay, then they'll hop into the 2nd seed, get a little better matchup for the playoffs. But we're just going to have to see how that rolls out. Then you have Dallas sitting at 8-4, probably the weakest division leader. And they go up against Washington this week. New York, the Giants the week after. Then they got Washington again. Then the Cardinals. Then the Eagles. There is nothing guaranteed that is saying Dallas is staying in this spot. I haven't seen all season them actually play really good football. Maybe once or twice. In this last stretch of maybe 5-6 games, we have not seen good football from Dallas. So going up against Washington, who's on a hot streak, twice, that could ruin their season right there. And, we'll just have to wait and see. But Dallas, you're not necessarily safe. Then you got the Rams sitting in that first wild card spot, sitting at an 8-4 record, going up against the Cardinals this week. Then they have the Seahawks, Vikings, Ravens, Niners. So again, I don't think they're going to catch up to Arizona, but they've got games where they can win them and solidify that wild card spot. Washington sitting at 6-6. They got the Cowboys, Eagles, and then Giants. They literally play their entire divisional schedule to end the year. Wow. And it couldn't come at a better time, to be honest, because they have an upper hand on every single team in their division right now. They have momentum. They have a formula that's working. And we could see them hop over Dallas and be the number 1 team for the NFC East and hop into that 4 spot. I don't think they're going to overtake, Tampa, Green Bay, or Arizona, but I think they very easily could take over Dallas within these next 5 weeks and be the division winner. And then you got San Francisco rounding out the wild card spots at 6-6. They've got the Bengals, Falcons, Titans, Texans, and Rams. They've got a good shot as well to solidify their spot. Again, I don't think they're going to catch Arizona at all, but this is a division where, back when it was just 6 teams, 2 of their teams were in constantly. We could see 3 out of the 4 teams from the NFC West in the playoffs this year, and I honestly wouldn't doubt it. This is a playoff picture I don't see changing all that much besides Washington hopping up, and then Dallas possibly falling out in some of these teams in the hunt, like the Eagles, who are 6-7, the Saints, who are 5-7, the Vikings, who are 5-7, the Panthers, who are 5-7, and the Falcons, who are 5-7. One of those teams possibly hopping up, with Dallas possibly dropping out. I don't want to bash on Dallas too much, but they're going to have to start playing better football, or they are at a very high risk, like the Ravens are in the AFC, of just falling out of the playoffs completely. But that's it for this week. Go ahead and join us tomorrow for the fantasy show. And I got to apologize. We were supposed to do a Lucky Bets podcast last week. I just didn't wake up in time. We didn't get that done. But we do plan on it this week. Dylan Corbett will be on the show. We'll make sure to make it a fun one for you. And so make sure to tune into that as well. But good luck this week on your picks. If you want to pick like I did, go ahead. I went 10-4 last week, 10-5 the week before, so we're kind of back on the up and up, looking good. And so maybe listen to me, maybe make your own picks. All up to you. But thanks for joining, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.